Hello and welcome to TelecomTV. We're reporting from Dusseldorf in Germany at the SDN and OpenFlow World Congress 2014. I'm Martin Warwick and I'm talking with an old friend of TelecomTV, Mark Cohn. He's a man of many hats, Mark. You must have a cupboard full of them because you're on various committees. You're well known in NFV and SDN circles. But we're talking today with you with your hat on as Senior Director Market Development at Ciena. So let's talk about the show to begin with. This is the third one, Darmstadt, 300 delegates. Last year, Bad Homburg, I can't remember how many, but let's say 750.
About 700.
Now 1,300 and turning them away at the door. It's incredibly successful. What do you make of it? What's it been like?
I think that the SDN and OpenFlow World Congress is indicative of how the industry is evolving. Over the last 2 years since I've been involved, well really about 3 years since I've been involved in the software-defined networking revolution, we've seen the questions change from whether or not SDN is a vital transformative force to how SDN will be implemented and deployed and affect every single carrier, vendor, and everyone throughout the value chain of networking and telecommunications. And doubling of growth, exponential growth is what we'd expect to see in the industry in the future. However, I don't believe the conference can double next year.
No, it will be a bit large, won't it? It will. Okay, so it's been a good success, and one of the things, the various themes coming out of it, obviously a lot on openness, which we can talk about in a few minutes, a lot of emphasis of proof of concepts, which I think there's 14 or so actually being demonstrated here at the event, real proof of concept, which showing cooperation between vendors, carriers, other bodies, all working together to solve problems, which is fantastic, really good. So there's openness, that kind of thing, and people are working together. But it's interesting the way the pendulum has shifted. If you remember back to Barcelona, back in February, a mere, 8-9 months ago, the emphasis was on SDN, nearly all the way, and NFV was sort of a junior partner down here. Since then, not at this show, but since then, the emphasis has been very, very much more on NFV, and it seems to have been not forgotten, but disregarded to some extent. The SDN cloud and SDN is the enabler for NFV in the first place. And now we're seeing the compass swinging back round towards SDN again. Why is that?
Well, I think it takes a while for such a broad technology initiative to emerge. I mean, looking at it from the perspective of Ciena, we were an early participant in OpenFlow over the last number of years. And then as the software-defined networking phenomena emerged, I'm not sure what to call it. It's not a market or it's not a technology. It's really more than that. It takes a long time for a new initiative like this to percolate through the system and to evolve into a solution that major operators can actually deploy. It affects the technologies involved, it affects the organizations involved, and it also affects the thinking, the mindset of how one is approaching the deployment of a new technology as pervasive as software-defined networking. It's affected Ciena in many ways. We've embraced strategically from our senior leadership down to the organization a model of openness, a model of software, high value add, and also being able to capitalize on our vast experience in running some of the world's most sophisticated networks that have delivered wireline services for many, many years. And SDN is now at the point where we're seeing the theory start to be implemented at least in terms of initial prototypes as we're seeing at this conference, as well as what Ciena is unveiling with our partner Ericsson in terms of the multi-layer WAN controller that we actually introduced at the show. And that controller provides an open platform to enable our high value added network applications to address such problems as optimizing the network and determining the appropriate and least cost ways of protecting network services and looking at the network in a more aggregated way than we looked at before. And what Ciena has done is to, again, be able to work through a number of different customer needs and environments so that we can now begin to introduce new capabilities that were unthinkable in the past.
When we were talking off camera before the interview began, you said that one of the things that happened at this show was showing that the transport SDN has come of age. Can you enlarge on that a bit?
Yes, at this particular event, we were very pleased to be involved in a multi-carrier, multi-vendor initiative between the Optical Internetworking Foundation, Forum, and the Open Networking Foundation in transport SDN prototype testing. This testing took 3 or so months throughout the summer. It involved international connections, multiple SDN controllers, and in some ways, most importantly, an open software-defined networking approach to being able to support a global transport network. And Ciena provided support in terms of an SDN controller that was integrated with orchestration systems. We provided packet optical equipment so that we can enable IP over packet optical services. And the results were exciting, and we were actually even participating in the readout of those results at multiple carrier sites. So that's clearly a significant data point. The other one was the ONF SDN Solution Showcase that we were supporting, at least to some extent, which is actually happening at the show. 20 or so vendors and operators were actually validating SDN use cases with prototypes, with some initial products, and it's been very exciting to watch that unfold. And especially in the context of the ETSI NFV proof of concepts that were also happening at the same time as the SDN technologies and the SDN way of thinking is enabling network function virtualization and those proof of concepts and subsequent deployment.
You mentioned earlier, Mark, added value, value added, whichever way you want to look around at it. What precisely do you mean by that? And is it graduated? For example, is there high added value and low, middle added value and low added value? Expand on it a bit.
Value add, I think, is what it's all about, because what SDN and NFV, what they actually raise in terms of the questions that operators are thinking about for the long-term planning of their networks is how software will be deployed, how intelligence will be deployed throughout the network. And it will be deployed through network applications and network orchestration and systems orchestration that is all based on software that actually provides the problems, or solutions rather, to the problems that operators have, which is how to address and increase the capacity to carry services, to generate revenue based on the assets that they have deployed today. And being able to improve the utilization is one way to reduce the capital expenditures that traditionally have necessitated the redeployment or new deployment of new hardware. What we intend to do is to use software to actually improve the utilization of the existing hardware so that we can support a broader range of revenue-bearing services in using the same, not only equipment, but to reduce the amount of space, the amount of electrical power, all the cloud-based metrics that are becoming or beginning to emerge within the carrier environment. Okay. That's one example of value add. And the second example of value add is to be able to work with individual operators and tailor the network behavior to their individual environments, the individual services and problems that they intend to solve, and be able to capitalize on the programmability of the network. That is what is the most exciting development of SDN. Because in the end, what that does is it allows for a new generation of innovation and most importantly to the operators, differentiation. So now they can actually differentiate services without necessarily having to compromise new technology developments that is available to all other operators that they compete with.
Final question to you to round the interview off. I don't want to put you on the spot and say, tell us what's going to happen next month or anything like that, but in general terms, looking forward to this time next year, maybe in another German town beginning with D, but who knows. But anyway, if we're all here and still alive and kicking, how much do you expect to have changed? Because the growth has been absolutely remarkable. I heard somebody say in a session earlier on this morning that this is so revolutionary, it's as revolutionary as a move from analog to digital.
I tend to agree. I completely agree. I think that telecommunications revolutions, they don't just change the industry, they change the world.
Absolutely.
And software-defined networking, even more so than network functions virtualization, is that transformative, fundamental paradigm shift that's going to enable a whole different world of communications. Everything from networks and users who don't have to, no longer are encumbered by the physical configuration of the network infrastructure that they operate on, to a whole range of new services that we can't even conceive of today. And what I think is happening, looking ahead, again, I'm going to look at what Ciena is planning to do with and without our partners. First of all, we're going to be a lot farther along in our product development plans, and we're going to be introducing, and not just in a prototype form, SDN solutions with some of our major customers who have been forward-looking in terms of how they want to transform their networks using software. We also intend to be thinking about how we can participate in the new generation open ecosystem that's going to shatter the approaches that are being taken today, which is to have a vendor-centric way of actually introducing new technologies. We want to participate in the community of technologies, which is why we're participating in the activities such as the Open Networking Foundation, the Open Optical Internetworking Forum, Open Daylight, all of the major SDN and NFV initiatives that Ciena is participating in. We've embraced openness. The solutions and the platforms that we intend to introduce are going to enable a new generation of openness, not to mention value add, and we think that's indicative of how the industry is going to evolve over the next 12 months. And I think also with the SDN and NFV mindset, the industry is going to stop talking, and they're actually going to embark upon the fast-fail model. We're going to continue to release and iterate versus to trying to create the completely functional box that is going to that is really going to be elusive in a fast-changing world with in a dynamic environment, which is what the operators are really facing that we're selling to.
Okay, really interesting terms. Good to talk to you again. Mark Cohn, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you, Martin.